Back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Joining us right now, our friend Frank Figliuzzi, FBI Assistant Director, retired, served 25 years, special agent, author of the national bestseller, The FBI Way and Long Haul. And he's got a really good Substack, which he's doing videos just about every single day. It's free. It's called the frankfigliuzzi.substack.com. Frank, good to see you. Is there another name for your Substack? Is it just Frank Figliuzzi Substack?
The Frank Figliuzzi.
That's it.
But big things are coming in the new year, Dean, so stay tuned.
You can't tell us what it is.
No.
Okay. Frank is being coy. This is ridiculous. That's why I don't break any news. Everyone comes down and tell me, wait until you hear what's happening next. I go, tell me. They go, I'll tell you after. No, but I wish you the best, whatever it is. So first of all, with the big picture, what's your reaction to what DOJ ended up releasing on Friday?
Okay. So I'm going to state the obvious and then quickly state that we've seen it before and no one seems to care. It is a violation of the law. The law, of course, being what Congress, in a rare bipartisan fashion, signed off on and the president signed. We know that no one cares about the Trump administration violating the law anymore, so I'll move on to the next observation, which is that they're playing games with victims' lives. They're playing games with traumatized people, and it's disgraceful. I won't even touch on the fact that they're playing games with us because we see it. We see it. I don't care how you voted, unless you are really brain dead, you understand what's happening. They should have released everything they could possibly have released, albeit not the victims' identities that they requested not to. And they have not. We're seeing a tiny fraction of the many, many gigabytes of information. And they think we're stupid. And they released among what the so-called treasure trove was what I call the bright, shiny objects of Bill Clinton, who has, by the way, I want to state on the record, as I have on the Frank Figliuzzi Substack, that he owes an explanation. The photos themselves are relatively disgusting. And, Dean, when's the last time you got a massage from like a preteen or teenage girl at a pedophile's house? He has to explain it. I'm not going to advise him. He's not going to ask me. But my point is, two things can be true at the same time. Bill Clinton could have some explaining to do and perhaps even engaged in abhorrent behavior, which, by the way, some would say he's already done years ago. And at the same time, this could be a complete distraction. And we see you. We see you, Todd Blanche. We see you, Pam Bondi, Attorney General.
Do you think it's because they think we're stupid or they just don't care because there's no accountability? So when there's no downside, you can act any way you want.
When you own the Supreme Court, both houses of Congress, the FBI and DOJ, you really don't care.
Right.
You really don't care. You're following the orders of the boss. Apparently, Pam Bondi and Todd Lynch no longer care about their bar license because it's guaranteed to be gone when they're done. And yeah, it's shameful. I don't know how they sleep at night. I don't know how they look in the mirror. But here we are. And rest assured that throughout the holiday season, when we're all trying to forget about this, they'll let stuff out in drips and drabs. It won't get the kind of coverage it deserves. Even the major media anchors and contributors are on vacation, and they know that, and that's what's going to happen. And I'll be damned. I don't think we're going to see, if they exist, very incriminating videos and photos of Trump and other high-ranking, powerful people.
Several of the victims, including Lisa Phillips, who came on my show a couple months ago, talk about how Jeffrey Epstein had surveillance cameras all over the premises. Yeah. And in 2019, when the FBI raided Epstein's home up in Upper East Side of New York, not far from where I live, there are photos of the hard drives they took because they were marked as exhibits in the 2021 trial of Ghislaine Maxwell. In fact, I just wrote an article about it, how FBI agent McGuire, I think Kelly McGuire, testified and walked the jury through these hard drives. Those hard drives could have footage, the surveillance footage. No one talks about. I don't know why there's no discussion about where is the surveillance footage of who was in the house. And we don't want to see who's having sex with children. If that's happening, they should turn that over to the FBI should turn it over to someone who might actually prosecute. But who else was in the house? Who saw what was going on? The victims deserve better than this bullshit.
Innocent, well-meaning people and associates of Epstein who traipsed through his various properties all commented on a couple of things. Number one, there were extremely inappropriate, risque artwork and photos on the walls. Number two, they saw cameras everywhere. And so if there's at least one takeaway from this release of data so far, it's that he's got photos of everybody. He's a prolific documenter. And whether you want to get into the conspiracy theories of he's all about blackmail and extortion or just power, control, or at this point, it's almost incidental. He documents the hell out of everything. And you know that there's documentation there. And why are we not seeing it? And you know, I'm open to having been engaged in the FBI and having to disclose volumes of data in the course of business. I'm open to discussion about how hard technically it is to properly redact video.
Right.
Okay. But you know what? They're not having that discussion with Congress. They're not going to the committees and saying, here's why this is taking so long. They're not coming to the American people saying we're having trouble with the videos. They're not.
You mentioned violating the Epstein Transparency Act. There are no penalties in that law. Who could enforce it? Who's going to have standing?
You raise an interesting point because, the federal laws that I enforced in the FBI, most of them had very specific statements about sentencing guidelines, ranges. Yeah, exactly. So what are we hearing now? We're hearing, and by the way, this is okay. That's good. We're hearing a couple of congressmen saying we may be considering inherent contempt.
Right.
And your listeners are savvy enough to know inherent contempt is not a referral to DOJ, which would be a joke at this point, but rather Congress takes it upon themselves. This hasn't happened since what? I don't know, the 1800s, 1700s? Where the sergeant of arms, which by the way is probably hired by Republicans, is supposed to go out and grab the offender and stick them in the lockup in the basement of the Capitol. That's what inherent contempt is. Are we ever going to see that happen? No.
I heard Representative Ro Khanna on MS Now today, and he said they weren't even trying to get an arrest. It's a $5,000 a day fine against Pam Bondi is what they're angling to. And that's kind of interesting because it could add up. I mean, Trump could just take the money from the Treasury and give it to her or from other slush fund because we don't live in a Democratic Republic anymore, so nothing really matters. Yeah. But, I mean, where did Trump get the money to rename the Kennedy Center? Who allocated that? It doesn't matter. Like, this is the problem of living through the time we do. If we all just say nothing matters, then the system collapses. But in any event,
I will just to close that out. I'll say, yes, I'd like to see her personally fined $5,000. She won't be putting that out of her pocket. But as you said, in the court of public opinion, it's clear that this seems to be there's a crack in the wall in the Republican world here. And I think the more time that goes on, when the public of all stripes realizes this is a huge, ridiculous game they're playing with us, that the court of public opinion will matter.
We're talking with our friend Frank Figliuzzi. Frank, there was something else that I think you covered on your Substack today, but Maria Farmer, and I saw the whole documentary, Filthy Rich, which was a really good documentary on Netflix, and she was interviewed in it. And she talked about going to the FBI in 1996 and that Epstein had abused her and her younger sister, and that they went to the FBI, they made a report, and that the FBI never publicly acknowledged she made a report. Some people accuse Maria Farmer of being a liar. Well, in the documents that were revealed, all of a sudden there is a notation, a record that she had made a complaint to them about him having child pornography, which I think were images of her younger sister. What more can you tell us about this?
Yeah, I did go into depth on this because of my own experience in the Bureau. I ran the second squad in the history of the FBI dedicated to crimes against children for a very painful period of my life in my career in San Francisco division. And by the way, I ran that squad starting in 97. So 1996 is the Bureau. What's my point? The Bureau is just getting its feet wet in the area of child sexual assault material, CSAM. And it's unclear. And so if you read this complaint in 1996 quickly, and you realize it's been handled by an intake clerk, a professional support staff member, not an agent. I can see that from the markings on it, like, it's going to general repository files. It's not, it seems not to be a case opening at all. But if you read it real quick, you got a complainant who's probably called in, probably said, I'm an artist. I took photos of my minor sisters, but the photos were stolen by this guy Epstein, and he creeps me out. All right, that's the first page. But then, so when I look at it through my professional lens, I go, okay, I get it. Is it meeting the prosecutable standards federally? Is it a graphic depiction of known minors engaged in sexual acts? Blah blah blah. And you go, no, probably not. And then you get further into it. And you go, like you just said. She says he allegedly he's distributing, and I think even maybe selling. He's distributing child. Right. Okay. At that point, and by the way, there's a threat that's communicated. Allegedly, I'll burn your house down or something like that if you talk about this. Okay. That's the timeout that should have happened at the FBI. Hold on. We're into distribution, allegation, and a threat. We don't know what happened with that, but clearly not enough. Clearly not enough. And what I can tell from the face of the complaint is it was properly indexed, meaning there's a red a pencil mark under Epstein's name and other material, which means it went into the FBI's databases, his name and the nature of the allegation. So it should have, at the very least, years later, when he comes up again in a similar allegation, even worse, they should have said, we've seen this before. We've seen this guy before.
Yeah, in 1996, that complaint's made. In 2008, he gets a sweetheart deal by Alex Acosta.
Yep.
And it's unreal. I want to shift gears for a second. A listener called in Thursday or Friday, and I promised I would ask you, and I have no idea what evidence they may or may not have, but they said, is there any credible evidence that Trump is compromised by Russia or China? And I said, well, I can ask Frank Figliuzzi because I don't know, maybe, but I have no idea. Any evidence? I mean, Russia more discussed China. I mean, anything?
We're back to the lingering question of whether, back with the Robert Mueller Russia Special Counsel inquiry, whether they fully explored the counterintelligence question. And my conclusion thus far is they did not, despite the fact that we understand that counterintelligence agents were detailed or at least had a relationship with the special counsel's office. I think if they found clear and convincing evidence that he was an asset and or compromised, that we would have seen it, at least in the classified addendum. We have no knowledge of that. So the short answer is I don't believe that credible evidence that he is compromised has surfaced enough to prosecute him for being a foreign agent. But are the bells and whistles there? Are the smoke and mirror? Is the smoke there? Yes. His deputy campaign manager, hired by Manafort, was found to be a Russian agent by the GOP-controlled Senate Intelligence Committee. I can go on and on. They gave this Russian agent strategic campaign information. Trump called for the Russians, to get the emails from Hillary Clinton, and they did. And I can go on, and there was a Russian propaganda campaign on social media to help Trump, and Putin has admitted he tried to help Trump. Yes, but there's been books written on whether the recruitment campaign of Trump started on his very first visit to Russia when they realized he could be a player. Yes. Is it credible? Not yet.
Anything with China at all?
Business relationships with his daughter. The fact that, in my opinion, he hasn't come down hard enough on them. Is China into everybody? Yes. They start recruiting people running for mayor in small towns. They start going after people running for Congress. They're everywhere all the time. Volume. If they didn't try to get their hooks into him and his family, they're very good at recruiting family. George W. Bush can tell you that about his brother, Neil.
Really?
Oh, yeah, this is public information. Yeah, so hard, credible evidence? Nope.
So when you say they get the hooks into them, what do you mean by that?
Well, business relationships. Look what they did with Hunter Biden. I mean, this is documented. My God, they had known Chinese intelligence operatives All of a sudden, Hunter Biden was the smartest global businessman in the world. And they were offering him, all kinds of money and gave him gifts, expensive gifts. Oh my God, we're going to get you into this business. And he's fallen for it. And, when I used to give defensive briefings, even to staffers and CEOs staffers on the Hill, CEOs, tech wizards, I'd go, you're never as good looking as you're going to be at a bar in Shanghai on a Saturday night.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. So that's how the honeypot situation.
Yeah.
They send,
Yeah.
interesting. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. So, Frank, I mean, Dan Bongino's leaving to go back to podcasting, apparently, which is a step up for what he was doing, I think, because he wasn't doing much. He's second in command, deputy director of the FBI. We know that there was documented fighting between him and Pam Bondi over the Epstein file. We know now he seems like he hasn't worked in a while there. He was working from home. His boxes were getting packed. And then it was confirmed he's leaving. How rare is it for the deputy director of the FBI to leave in less than a year? And what do you read into this?
So I can't, I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but I can't recall it happening. And of course, it's never been the case that a deputy director was brought in from the outside to run the day-to-day operations of the FBI. So that's a first time thing. Look, I think people are, and I want to, in full disclosure, Dan Bongino is someone who, when he had his podcast, came after me regularly, had a photo of me behind his desk, attacked me regularly. So take everything I say with the knowledge that, he will come back and try to attack me again. I think people are giving him too much credit who are saying, oh, I think he saw all of the Trump issues and Epstein file issues, and he can't stomach it, and he left. I think you're giving him too much credit. But hey, let's hope for the best.
It's interesting because when the Epstein things were happening and there was rumors he was going to quit right then, I was even on cable or some podcast saying he might leave because he went into the FBI, I believe, because he thinks it helps his brand. Now, if you're going to be inside the government and it's hurting your brand because your brand ultimately is coming back out making money with podcasts, if your credibility is being destroyed, you leave. So I said I wouldn't be surprised if he left, and he waited a few more months and then he left because I think it's a business decision. All of it's, I mean, I'm not being above it by saying there's a business angle involved. You get asked by the president to serve in some position in government. You do it out of a sense of public service because he had been a former federal agent, but you also do it knowing when you're at that level, it could help me on some level. I'm former deputy. I get to go wherever.
Oh yeah. Oh, he's gonna write a book. He's gonna write a book of my 9 months at the bureau. And by the way, the book will have to go through pre-publication review, just as my books had to get fly specced. And of course they won't care. Let's remember, we're talking about a man who, Kash Patel, waived the polygraph requirement to give him a clearance. We're talking about a man who was part and parcel of firing executives with 20, 30 years of experience at the FBI without any due process. So before we, think about a book or his podcast show, let's remember he was part of the dismantling of the Bureau.
Do you have any sense from agents that you might still know? Does him leaving help morale? I mean, if someone else comes in who's actually a professional who's worked with the FBI to do
it looks, Dean, it looks like the guy who's going to just step up. And by the way, this was planned, right? Because never, as I said, never before had we seen a deputy director from the outside of the FBI. Well, guess what? Never before had we seen co-deputy directors of the FBI. Remember months ago now, they brought in the Attorney General of Missouri? Do I have that right?
Oh, yeah.
And I forget his name. And he's been sitting there quietly running the FBI, right? And let me tell you something, my opinion, he knew months ago that he was going to replace Bongino. Come on. And so he'll be the guy. And yes, to answer your question, yes, morale will slightly improve because they viewed the top two guys as just getting in the way of the Bureau's work and reputation.
I wonder if Kash Patel makes it through the next year, but who knows? I mean, no one knows. And I guess if he just screws up more, maybe he's gone, but we'll see. I'm chatting with Frank Figliuzzi. Last two things. One is about Venezuela. Donald Trump kept saying it's about drugs with Venezuela, but now he have a new thing. He goes, they took our oil and we want it back. Exact quote. They took all of our oil, all of it, and we want it back. They illegally took it. And then in December 16th, in a social media post, Venezuela returned to the United States, America, all of the oil, land, and other assets they previously stole from us. I didn't see drugs in there. So what is your take? What's going on
So
here?
we've gone from first fentanyl. It's about fentanyl. And then of course someone told them, no fentanyl coming from Venezuela, sir. Okay. It's about cocaine. 2.5% of the cocaine in the US comes from Venezuela. Oh, okay. And now we get the truth. Really truth. It's about oil. But here's the other lie. The fentanyl was a lie. The cocaine is a lie. And now here comes the lie that we owned land and oil in Venezuela and they stole it from us. I've done my homework on this. It's Here's what happened. We had American oil companies operating and oil and natural gas operating successfully in Venezuela. Venezuela did nationalize much of that operation. They allowed the operation, they nationalized it. We never owned the land and the oil. The US companies went to court, went to arbitration as was dictated under the agreements. Arbitration said, we're paying you off. You're right. This is not nice. You deserve a lot of money. Here's the money we're allotting you. So, for example, I think ExxonMobil asked for it. Well, it was then just Exxon and separately Mobil. They each asked for $1 billion. They ended up getting $980 million. But what's my point? It's been arbitrated. It's done. We never owned the land and the oil. To claim now that we're going to go in and take the land and oil that's been seized is at best misleading.
I'm glad that you laid out the arbitration part and that there was compensation already. He'll just continue. I mean, we might still be chasing an oil tanker right now as we speak. It's hard to say. I know
we are. Coast Guard is. Yeah.
You blow up ships with people in fishing boats, you kill them all, but oil, you don't shoot that. You got to preserve, be very careful with that.
Yeah, and one of the boats, I think, I call it a boat, a tanker ship is docked outside of Galveston, Texas. And, we're going to take all this oil. Trump's already said that. You don't need to take my word for it. Yeah. But here's the concern. We've moved now from saying, okay, we're going to grab sanctioned tankers. And by the way, I'm all for that. One of the reasons you see Coast Guard doing this is because they're also a law enforcement agency. You may have also heard FBI was involved in the seizure of somebody. That's because they're sanctioned and there's legal action to take. All good. But now listen to Trump's tone change. We're taking back land and oil. That's not sanctioned. He's just saying it out loud. We're just going to steal some oil, folks.
Sure. Why not? And the price of oil went up today. In the crude market, I saw if that continues to happen, he does a saber rattling. The oil market is going to go up, and a lot of countries will take advantage. Very last thing, just the last minute, when you look back at this first year of Donald Trump, did the system withstand the onslaught by Trump on our checks and balances in our republic?
Oh gosh, the only bright spot, Dean, it has been in many cases the judiciary. And that is it for me. I'm sorry for the lack of optimism, but it is death by 1,000 cuts to our institutions and to our freedoms. And there's more coming. There's far more coming. The question of whether things will hold or not may not just depend on the judiciary, but on the fact that at some point he will break the camel's back with regard to the public sentiment on all sides of the aisle.
Well, his approval rating in the latest Gallup poll out today is down to 36 or 37%. You really are the lowest for an American president in the second term. We're like George Bush in the second term already. So, but Frank, I want to thank you, my friend. Again, Frank's Substack, thefrankfigliuzzi.substack.com. Sign up for it. You can watch Frank do videos every day. Merry Christmas to you and your family, my friend. Happy New Year. I look forward to chatting with you in the new year.
And thank you. The same to you and yours. Happy holidays. Stay safe, everybody.